is my name touch ready? And is my time ready? Alright. Hello, my name is Dugan. My partner Cody Mericle and I stand firmly resolved that the American Alliance, AAM, should adopt a nationwide policy requiring free admission to all art museums. Our definitions are as follows. American Alliance of Museums, abbreviated AAM. All museums registered with the AAM. Nationwide, applies to all and only the museums in the territory of the United States of America. Policy. A high-level overall plan embracing the general goals and acceptable procedures, especially of a governmental body. Art museums are non-profit-making permanent institution in the service of society and of its development and open to the public, which acquires, conserves, researches, communicates, and exhibits for purposes of study, education, and enjoyment, material evidence of humans and their environment. Our harms are as follows. 1. Equal opportunity. Equal opportunity. Quote, education is not just in schools. Parents also have an important role in broadening their children's cultural horizons through museum visits, among other forms of creative and intellectual stimulus. Children may have free entry at many museums, but parents are often charged high prices, deterring family visits, especially from the poor and from those families who do not prize education so highly. Again, this is an equal opportunity issue, being one of the reasons why middle-class children outperform their less privileged peers academically. End quote. From debatewise.com. 2. More people come when free. More people come when free. Quote, the Jocelyn was free to the public for decades after its founding in 1931, but it added an admission charge of $8 for adults in the 1990s. Annually, the fees amounted to roughly $200,000, or between 2 and 4% of the museum's total revenues. There was one admission-free time in the course of the week from 10 a.m. to noon on Saturdays, and we had more than 40% of all our weekly visitors show up then, Becker said. Quote, that reveals the widespread desire for us to be free, as we always had been, and we followed through on that, end quote. Harm 3. Already paying for museums and taxes, no need to pay admission. Quote, in December, the Los Angeles Times argued that as tax-exempt nonprofits, art museums should be free, as the public is already contributing to museums' coffers by way of tax dollars, end quote. 4. Admission not the best way to generate revenue, donations far more effective. Museums only use a small percentage of money collected from admission fees. Roberta Smith says museums earn an average of 5% of their revenue from admissions. Eliminating admission fees can attract new community support. When the Contemporary Arts Museum in Houston stopped charging admission in 1995, public donations increased to make up for lost income. 5. Museums should be educational, not entertainment. Christopher Knight, a Los Angeles Times art critic, said in 2014, quote, admission fees turn visitors into customers, and relying on customers turns an educational enterprise, which is what a museum is, into public entertainment, end quote. Plan. Our plan is already working, as Sarah Koskian wrote on artnet.com in June of 2015. Quote, a 2013 report from the AAM found that 37% of American museums are free or have suggested donation, end quote. Our mandate. The AAM will adopt a nationwide policy requiring free admission to all art museums. Any art museums in the AAM membership will follow this policy. If not, they will no longer be part of the AAM. Our agency, the American Alliance of Museums. Enforcement. Each museum in the AAM would enforce this policy. Funding. Donations, donors, private funding, museum gift shops and restaurants, rental fees, and art grants. Funding sufficient. Quote, losing that 2% in revenues hasn't harmed the Jocelyn Museum's finances since there has been an increase in visitors. Quote, I've seen a lot of people who haven't been through the doors here in 20 years, if ever, because they couldn't afford to come, Becker said, who are eating at the museum's cafe and making purchases at its gift shop. Quote, the earned income more than offsets the loss in admissions. Advantages. 1. More people of all classes come as price is no longer a barrier. Price no longer a barrier. From Denver Post journalist Ray Mark Rinaldi, quote, museum leaders are recognizing that admission fees, even small ones, create barriers that need to come down. Quote, people routinely list price as a major factor when surveys ask why they don't attend art events more often. Advantage 2, preserve history and create nation's unity. Quote, museums have a valuable role in preserving and transmitting history and heritage to new generations. Free access will encourage more people to find out about their country and help the national unity and identity, while promoting greater understanding and acceptance of foreign cultures. End quote. For all these reasons, I stand firmly resolved that the AAM should adopt a nationwide policy requiring free admission to all art museums. Thank you. I now stand ready for cross-examination.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What evidence do you have for high prices in museums?
I think, let's see. I'll have my partner bring that up.
Okay. So you suggested enforcing free admission. Why not allow people to come during free time and accept the additional funds of admission?
Because it would be better if it was all the time, then people would always have access.
Thank you. May I have your 1AC?
Yes, just a minute. Okay. There you go.
Thank you. What evidence do you have that, artwork is education and not entertainment?
The Christopher Knight Los Angeles Times art critic.
Okay, thank you. So you said that the punishment for not behaving to this, according to this rule, is being banned from the AAM. Why is this a bad thing? Why should this motivate them not to participate in this law?
Because the American Alliance of Museums is helping many museums, and people would want to be part of the AAM.
So the AAM would help with funding.
Possibly.
Is the AAM a government-operated institute?
I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for your time.
Mr. Joseph, is the timekeeper ready? Good afternoon. My partner, Micah Smith, and I, Noah Stoltz, stands firmly resolved that the AAM, or American Alliance of Museums, should not adopt a nationwide policy that requires all art museums to be free. We accept the definitions given by the Affirmative team. My opponent stated in the first harm that allowing museums to be free would allow equal opportunity for everyone. I have evidence written by Michael Rushton that says, fourth, as economics like to note, prices are an allocation mechanism. For the most popular museums, the cost of admitting an extra visitor is not trivial, as the visitor is making the museum much more crowded for all the others. The British Museum has free admission, but a study of visitors by David Madison and Terry Foster, who showed pictures of relatively more or less crowded rooms in the museum's patrons on their exit, found that visitors would gladly have traded off some sort of admission fee for a less crowded museums. Lower prices mean more visitors, unless you put a cap on admissions and use queues as your allocation device instead of price, and a less enjoyable experience with the arts. On their second harm, they stated that more people would come when it's free. I have a piece of evidence written by Debbie Lasky. It says, a charge for entry might actually make people value the museum more. Art critic opinions aside, what about the economics around this issue of charging or not charging admission fees? Recently, Colin Dillenschneider, a nonprofit researcher, analyzed some data to determine if free admission helps to engage undeserved audiences and attract new visitors. She found that when museums offer free admission, they don't attract waves of new audiences. Her analysis found free admission also does not always help boost visitor numbers. The Smithsonian Institute museums, all free, had their total attendance decline 7% from 2012 to 2014, even as the U.S. population increased and tourism to the U.S. boomed. In 1997, the Baltimore Museum of Art had 320,000 visitors annually and charged them all an entry fee. It made admission free in 2006, and today its annual attendance is just 180,000. According to Dylan Schneider, admission pricing is hardly the cure-all that many imagine it to be when it comes to increasing attendance. We need to reevaluate our strategy for engaging new audiences because the free admission fix may not prove sustainable. Moreover, focusing on free general admission may be distracting organizations from cultivating more effective engagement strategies and programs for reaching new audiences. Thank you for, please vote for the negative team. I now stand ready for cross-examination.
Is the time ready? Okay. Is all your evidence from the U.S.?
Yes.
Was one of your people British?
I do not know.
Okay. And do you agree that within nationwide, your evidence would have to be from people who are in the U.S.?
No, yes, I would say
Okay.
that.
And do you believe in equal opportunity?
Yes.
Is art educational?
Yes, it can be.
Do you value education or entertainment more?
I would I would say there's a 50-50 there.
Okay. And do you agree that the purpose of museums is the education of the community and that they are nonprofit organizations?
Yes.
And do you believe national unity is important?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and then do you think that would a rich kid who has been multiple times to a museum or a poor kid who's only able to go once, would they value the museum trip more?
I would say I would have to get back to you on that.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Judge, it's the time limit. So, my opponent brought up the fact that museums were crowded. I'm not sure if this is a bad thing or a good thing, but as a museum owner, if I was a museum owner, I would want more people in my museum to further purchase different items from the gift shop and stuff like that. And he also stated that when people pay for art, it makes them value it more. So I'm going to use a metaphor for this. If you were handed two, let's put it ice cream cones, and one of them was free and the other you had to pay for, which one would you enjoy more? Would you enjoy the free ice cream or the ice cream you had to pay for? Same, even if they're the same quality either way. And as my teammate expressed, that people would experience equal opportunities if all art museums were free. And art museums are used for education. And as most of you know, we are all homeschooled. Well, most of us are anyway. And so, and I have an article from debate.com that says that it is not just the parents' job, it's not just the school's job to educate the kids, it is also the parents' job. And going back to where I started, he said that museums are crowded, and I'm not sure if that's a bad thing, because more people would come if the museums were free, and they'd be able to learn more things. And as the evidence my opponent asked for, as during the cross-examination, going to a museum today can be quite expensive. Adults pay around $25 for at Boston Museum's Fine Arts at $15, and $15 at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, and that is pretty expensive for an adult ticket. As if the alternative, as if we were paying for taxes, which we already slightly are. That one is from. Hang on, let me find his name. Steve Johnson from the Chicago Tribune. The Dallas Museum of Art went free for both general admissions and basic membership in 2013. And it has paid off significantly, said Maxwell Anderson, the director, who has led the Indianapolis Museums of Art back to free admission. With 3 months left in the current year, attendance at the Dallas Museum was 5,100 and 17,000 compared to, with this previous year's 5,422. And it has increased by 71,000 people per year on a free base level, with members donating up to $9 million a year. That is all I have. I'm ready for cross-examination.
Is Judge ready? the timekeeper ready? You stated that adults have to pay a pretty substantial fee to get into museums.
Yes.
Wouldn't they value the art more if they had to pay the money that they worked hard to earn?
Could you just state the question?
Wouldn't they value the art they're looking at more if they had to use the hard-earned money that they worked for?
Okay, that is an opinion. But which would you value more? I made that metaphorically.
Are all your sources credible?
Yes.
Are all your sources from the U.S.?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. That was all I had to say.
Is the judge ready? Timekeeper ready? Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Micah Smith. My partner and I, Noah Saltz, believe that the enforcement of free admission across the United States and free art museums would be a tremendous mistake. Excuse me. My first point I would like to make is the current admission price is not extremely expensive. Here is a source quoted from Michael Rushton of QZ.com. First, as options go for being able to enjoy the fine arts, might I stress the fine arts, museums are not expensive compared to what we pay for opera, classical music, or theater, not the movie theater, that we can set the Met's magnificent collection, the Met's magnificent collection for just $25, or visit the Rijksmuseum Museum, please pardon me if I butchered that, in Amsterdam for $20, or the Prado in Madrid for $18. And it might seem high compared to museums with free admission, obviously, or high relative to what was changed 20 years ago. But we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that these prices are a relative bargain in the cultural world, and the prices reflect what patrons are willing to pay. A visit to any of these museums shows that they are not just for the pleasure of a small elite. My third point is art can be both education and entertainment. It is unfair to set a label upon artwork. As my partner previously mentioned, it can be both. My fourth point is access is already equal, no matter the price. And that goes hand in hand with their first harm. Access is not the problem here. It is simply the price. If someone really wanted to see artwork that is being displayed in their local museum, if they had the money, they would still have the access. My fifth point is these museums are crowded because they are free and to an undesirable extent. The affirmative team brought up that business would be good if there are a lot of people, but might I stress to an undesirable point, the people in the museum participating in the viewing of these specimens were saying themselves, in my partner's evidence, that they would have gladly exchanged some form of payment in order to bring down the amount of people that were cluttering the room. And my sixth point, ice cream is an extremely unfair comparison. Excuse me. We're comparing a dairy product. You get my point. Point 7, I would like to address their second harm. Museums are crowded because they are free. The admission removes this problem. People are less willing, but not to the point of cutting off the circulation of income. And then my 8th point, the affirmative does not determine whether art is education or entertainment. They have no right. That is for the people to decide. Thank you for your time.
Judge ready? Timer ready? How are you doing today?
Less sweaty than the week before.
So, what are Michael Rushton's qualifications?
Michael Rushton directs the Arts Administration programs at the School of Public and Environmental Affairs at Indiana University. Would you like me to continue?
No. The article you read, were those facts from his studies or his opinion?
Those facts were from his studies.
Okay. That is all I have.
Is the time ready? Is the time ready? Earlier, our opponents stated that if museums were made free, more people would be willing to come. But think about people who go to a car show are not going to come to a museum just because it's been made free. If they don't come already, why would they come just because they don't have to pay? And people who go to art museums wouldn't want to go to a car show because it has been made free. That's not what they enjoy. They enjoy looking at art. And then I have a piece of evidence from Debbie Lasky. She said, after queuing and paying to get into a French or Spanish museum, you feel a certain thrill in finally entering its galleries. Perhaps our culture of free entrance makes museums seem more ordinary and distracts from their wonder. Here is the most unsayable truth of all. We pride ourselves on free museum entry because it apparently reflects a democratic belief in art for all. But is that really the reason Britain developed a tradition of free entrance? If you look at the culture and history of Britain, it is clear that until very recently we did not care much about visual art compared with, say, France or the US. In the last century, our museums were free, and they were dowdy. Today, they are great cultural centers. They must stay that way. In tough times, it is better for museums to sell off their treasures, to cut back staff, to shrink or dwindle, or to charge an entrance fee. That's all I have. Thank you.
Imagine that you could stroll into any art museum as easily as you enter a public library or a shopping mall or the local grocery store. You don't have to stop at a desk or wait in line. No one asks for identification or, best of all, makes you pay. Would you go to your city's museum more often or bring friends when they visit from out of town? When money is tight, would it make the museum a better choice for your family outings? Most importantly, would it make you feel more connected to art? The AAM should adopt a nationwide policy requiring free admission to all art museums. Free admission to art museums creates equal opportunity for people to experience the history and art. The definition of equal opportunity from businessdictionary.com is, quote, the principle of non-discrimination, which emphasizes that opportunities in education, employment, advancement, benefits, and resource distribution in other areas should be freely available to all citizens, irrespective of their age, race, religion, political association, etc. Price is a big barrier, but deterring people from museums. Funding is sufficient to charge free admission. Admission fees to art museums is an average of 5 to 7%, making it a small amount compared to the rest of museums' income. Many museums are already taking steps in the direction of free admission and seeing the benefits. Quote, the Baltimore Museum of Art used to offer free Thursdays, but decided in 2006 to completely eliminate general admissions, resulting in an annual loss of $240,000. At 2% of the museum's budget, this move seemed worthwhile in order to attract the people who were put off from coming in because of the price of admission, according to Dugan, the museum's recently retired director. We're a community-based museum in a city of 650,000, and 53% of the population is African American. Since 2006, she added, the audience is more diverse. Just as important, Bolger suggested, was that eliminating admission fees helped to change the perception of the museum among city residents. Doing away with admissions did lead to a drop-off in memberships of 10%, since many regular visitors became members principally to avoid ticket lines, but area businesses and local donors stepped forward to create a free admission endowment, which has helped to make up the difference. Art is for education, not entertainment. We should treat it as such. Quote, a museum's admission policy is charged with meaning. It encodes the institution's core values, its sense of itself, its mission, and its public, and broadcasts them to that public. In a 2002 panel discussion at Harvard University that was recently quoted on the art blog Culture, Glenn D. Lowry, director of the Museum of Modern Art, remarks that it's almost a moral duty that museums should be free, end quote. But museums only partly resemble popular entertainment. Unlike corporations, they were not founded out of profit incentive. They're only marginally like schools where the overriding goal is the learning of basic skills. Museums are most comparable to libraries. Like libraries, they are repositories of knowledge. Like books, artworks are tools for lifelong self-education. It is through them that we discover and explore important aspects of our humanness. They should be equally available to all for the good of the individual and society as a whole. Most Americans would be appalled if public libraries charged entrance fees. For all these reasons, I strongly urge an affirmative ballot. Thank you.
Is the judge ready? Keep ready. Okay, thank you. I shall begin. First of all, I would like to make a point. Beginning museums who are starting off cannot afford, quite literally cannot afford, to allow free admission. They would be included in this demographic and could not follow this law. Could not afford to. My second point is in the affirmative's opening statement previously, why not pay on the way out if it's such an inconvenience to pay up front? My third point, the affirmative team never proved that art is education versus entertainment. Many people do not see artwork as educational. They appreciate art. They value art, but they do not see it as educational. My fourth point is people who are not coming because of the price do not appreciate art as it is. These are the people who are cluttering up the museums to an undesirable point. They'll go see Captain America 3. My fifth point is, and then my sixth point is museums are not libraries. That is the reality. They are very different in many ways. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Judge, my opponent stated that the poor people do not appreciate art. No, that's not right. Hang on. Let me start over. My opponent stated that poor people do not appreciate art because of the museum prices. And I would like to go over the harms and advantages and paint a clear and thorough picture throughout the whole debate. So our first harm was equal opportunity. We want equal opportunity as in education is not just in schools, it is in museums. I would like to stress that point very thoroughly. My opponent does not think that we have the qualifications to make museums, art museums into education. But I think education is not just in one person's opinion. And our second harm was more people come when free. It's obvious that when something's free, more of it's going to be given or sold, depending on the thing. And harm 3 is that we as the people of art-going museums, we already pay for museums. 7% of the revenue is coming from museum, that is going to museums, is coming from taxes that we already pay. Harm 4, admission is not always the best way to generate revenue, generate money. As I brought up in my 1NC, that $160,000 was generated more by donations in the Los Angeles Museum of Arts when they became free if you want a date, you can ask me later. And the fifth harm is museums should be educational, not entertainment. By putting a price on the museum or continuing with the price, it becomes entertainment. I mean, if you have let me restate that. If you put a price on a museum and they're the same price as, say, a movie ticket to go see Captain America 3, which would you rather go see? But in the other case, if the museum's free, then you could go see that instead. Thank you, that's all I have to say. And I strongly urge you to vote for the affirmative.